Welcome to McGuire on Wrestling.
What do you guys want to talk about?
Let's give the people what they want. Professional wrestling.
With Mike McGuire.
The happiest Canadian camper in the world.
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
Give me a hell yeah.
Welcome to the show. It is the Canadian Thanksgiving long weekend here, but you still get a show because, frankly, that's what we do around here. All new stuff, and of course, a big night last night in AEW. It appears as though Bryan Danielson has wrestled his last full-time match ever. What does that mean exactly? Well, we don't know yet, but we've heard a lot of things, so we'll talk all about that show. Plus, Dave Meltzer is here, and we get your feedback with another edition of Yay Boo. And it's a doozy this week because these AEW shows are always so loaded. So, I'm a little under the weather still this week. It's just this little sinus respiratory thing that just won't go away, it seems. But nevertheless, it's fall in Alberta and really most of North America, where this is just the turn of the seasons, so to speak. So we all get this, right? One thing I would appreciate if you could get on sometime is checking out our Facebook group, Team MOW, McGuire on Wrestling, is where you can join all the conversations about what we talk about here on the show, as well as all sorts of things throughout the week. And if you haven't subscribed to this podcast feed yet, hopefully we give you a reason to today. Not only do you get this show, you get a great show from across the pond called Legends and Champions with Andy Evans. That drops in your midweek. Every once in a while, my friend Joe Aguinaldo, who's on this week's show, he joins me for a show called We've Seen a Movie, and we review some of the movie career of John Cena and those films. And then, of course, the alternate commentary table every Saturday. All these shows post for free, absolutely anytime, wherever you get your podcasts, or at McGuireShow.com. We air and are supported by numerous radio stations. Next week, as a matter of fact, there will be a bonus episode of this show because CKXU is one of the stations that broadcasts us. They're a community station, and they're doing their annual fund drive, and they're actually doing a pro wrestling themed fund drive. So, of course, we're going to be there for that, as well as all sorts of other great events going on. But if you'd like to find out more, again, McGuireShow.com and the Team MOW McGuire on Wrestling Facebook page is where you go for that. Now, last thing, while you're there, some people have suggested it. We don't ask for it ever. But if you would like to support the show financially, you can leave a tip through PayPal at McGuireShow.com. Other than that, we believe that these shows should always be free and always be about pro wrestling. And we've got a doozy for you today. Coming up, a current superstar may be hanging up the boots once and for all. Is there a move to gobble up Legends talent in pro wrestling? While WWE is getting ready for Crown Jewel, it seems that they're already building up their Survivor Series card. Plus, Dave Meltzer is here, and Joe Aguinaldo and I get to your feedback through another edition of Yay Boo. It's all on the way, but first, let's take a look at some of the biggest stories of the week. We call it the 5 Count.
You want to hear the breaking news?
Well, like I said, coming up, we're going to have the full rundown of the AEW WrestleDream card, including the results. But the big story, Bryan Danielson losing his World Championship title, and summarily, his wrestling career as a full-time performer is now over. Now, after the show last night, neither Danielson nor Tony Khan appeared at the post-show media scrum. We'll have more details on that coming up as well. AJ Styles is reported to have suffered a foot injury on last week's edition of WWE SmackDown, which will now keep him out of action for a little while longer. Ironically, Styles was making his return to in-ring action, getting into a bit of a scuffle with Carmelo Hayes. There's now even a word from Dave Meltzer that this may be the part of a retirement angle for Styles. There has been word in the past that Styles is looking to wrap up his in-ring career soon and move over to training or coaching. In a statement made on social media, Jesse the Body Ventura announced that, quote, hell has frozen over and he has signed a Legends contract with WWE. This means action figures, merchandise, and more. Going to be headed the way for the Body, or should I say the Body? I don't know if the impression works as well when I'm sick. Anyway, along with Jesse, we've heard word that names like Rob Van Dam, Hornswoggle, and more have all signed deals. Diamond Dallas Page also announced this past weekend that he has signed a Legends deal with WWE. There's no news as to whether or not WWE is looking to accumulate more Legends talent, but we'll talk about that in the show coming up as well. Friend of the show, Jimmy Jacobs, has reportedly left AEW's creative team and is looking to continue his work on the independents. Jacobs joined the creative staff a couple of years ago and contributed to several major angles throughout the company. No official statement has been made by either side, but no matter what happens, we wish Jimmy the absolute best. While many were quick to jump on the low ratings that AEW's Title Tuesday generated this past Tuesday, it's no surprise given to the fact that they suffered from a time slot and day change at the same time. Unfortunately, the lowest rated Dynamite in history occurred the week after AEW announced their huge television renewal deal, but again, this should be considered more of an anomaly. We'll talk about that and a lot more coming up. I did rush through the 5 count this week because we have a lot of your feedback on a lot of matches on the way. Plus, Dave takes us through some of the headlines, so stick around. That is all coming up next.
If you're here, you're a part of Team MOW. Join us on Facebook at Team MOW McGuire on Wrestling and get in on the conversation. This is McGuire on Wrestling.
Hey, yo, how many of you here came to listen to your same generic wrestling podcast? Or how many of you came to listen to the alternate commentary table every single Saturday?
You're going to get our perspective of what the real fans of wrestling think, and no one does it like us.
Subscribe and stream to the McGuire on Wrestling podcast feed anywhere where you're streaming your podcasts. Survey says one more for the Greek guys.
Chair shot.
It's time for the Wrestling Observer Insider with Dave Meltzer, McGuire on Wrestling.
Dave, happy Canadian Thanksgiving. Gobble, gobble.
No, that was today.
See, I got one thing on you, but now you know. All right, obviously the big topic we have to talk about. I kind of asked you about it last week. Everything lined up for this to be the way it was. Looks like Bryan Danielson's last full-time wrestling match did happen last night by losing the AEW championship to Jon Moxley. A lot of people kind of concerned about the flat finish with the beatdown and everything else that went on. What are your thoughts?
It was how he wanted it. And, he wanted to go out strong, make heels on the way out. That was the idea. I mean, if it works, we'll know. But I mean, look, they need strong characters on top. And so, that was he's a team player. It always has been. So I did not have, I had no issue, but you never know how things are going to play out. It's like, right. If this was 25 years ago, I would have said, this is going to be awesome, but it's a different fan base. So you don't know. And AEW has got, AEW's got a very different fan base. So, some people were unhappy, but a lot of times I've seen this stuff where people are really unhappy leaving the show, and it does lead to big business. So, you just gotta, you gotta let it play out and see what happens. It was not what I expected. I would have thought, he loses and you have the big, kind of celebration in your hometown, and didn't have that. Certainly, he's got all kinds of stories to return, but I think he's having neck surgery, and I don't know that he's going to, a year from now, people will forget those stories for the most part. Who knows where these characters are going to be. So I think it's more just to get that group over as really strong heels. And they got to get some strong baby faces, main event baby faces to go after them. That's the thing. I would have wished that, you could see Darby Allin on that side. He was the one kind of focal, but I would have really liked to have seen Swerve in there, running in and helping and be in that main event position as well. And, maybe, a Samoa Joe if he came back or whatever. You want a springboard of something really big to go to. And sometimes with AEW, you get that. And sometimes, you get these big angles and then 3 weeks later, they're kind of forgotten. And I just hope this isn't one of them.
I don't think they can leave this one line down without fans getting into a wild uproar about it because it was so dramatic and because we didn't get the standing up and waving goodbye to the crowd. We didn't get the tearful speech or anything like that. And what I found most interesting about this, and tell me if you agree or not, just how quick the submission was ruled with the sleeper at the end there. Yeah. I think that's what he wanted was a real finish. You know what I mean? Like a real life, real MMA finish rather than a fake pro wrestling finish.
I think that was the idea. I mean, I was stunned. I think everyone was when the bell rang. It's kind of like he's going to get out of it. I wouldn't have been surprised if he lost, but yeah, at that moment, I wasn't ready for it, and I think that was part of it. Was he felt that rather than do traditional pro wrestling, I would do something to shock everybody.
Well, either way, it's been done. As we know, the story continues now. I know Brian Alvarez and other folks from The Observer were at the post-show media scrum last night. This was a weird one. Tony Khan wasn't there.
Really weird.
Oh, and Short and Tony Schiavone was hosting it.
Tony, I don't know what was the deal with Tony, but I don't know if he was, sometimes you just play the act, and the idea is that I'm so sad because of what happened to Bryan Danielson, and maybe that's what he was looking for. But he just felt like he didn't want to be there. But I mean, it could be him just playing an act, you know what I mean? And just trying to get over the idea that we just lost Bryan Danielson. I'm not going to be here celebrating that we had a great card.
Well, I get they're trying to sell that, obviously. These media scrums were always considered kind of the peek behind the curtain a bit, and they have leaned more towards the characters and the kayfabe as of late. Did you hear from Brian or anybody else there how many other reporters were in the room? Because I think 4 people got questions in, and one guy got questions on everybody.
We never even talked about the thing, so I don't know. I talked to him for like an hour and a half last night, but we ended up I wanted to talk to him about the scrum, and by the time, we never even got the time for it because we were running down the card, and I was running down a lot of thoughts on AEW, really, and just where they are and what they need to do. And, we got a Wednesday Dynamite in San Jose, and the only match I know is Mercedes Moné and Queen Aminata. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. It's like a, NHL arena, as it's like, what are we doing? So I hopefully, and look, even if they do matches Monday and Tuesday, like they wouldn't have been on TV. They weren't even on, I figured at least on the pay-per-view, we'd come out with like 3 matches in a segment, right? And like one match that wasn't even like the build. You saw the build up. She just kind of walks in, and the other one's there, and it's like, okay, now we got a match. Wasn't even a big angle.
Well, the last time you were away, Mike Sempervive and I were talking about that problem. And, you might see a bunch of stuff released on social media this week, but Mike brought up a great point, and I wanted to see if you agree or disagree with this, but maybe AEW is relying too much on the social media releases, 100%. Twitter specifically.
100%. And I think that nowhere is that more evident than the rating from that Tuesday night show, because I don't think they hit the Tuesday night at 9:00 start time hard enough. When I watched the show the previous Wednesday, it's like they mentioned it. If you were paying close attention, you knew. And then I talked to Brian Alvarez that night, and I go like, next week it's Tuesday at 9 p.m. And he goes, really? And he watched the same show I did, but he didn't even notice. And it was like, oh boy, if you don't notice. And then the day of and the day before, they hit it like crazy on social media, and the reaction ended up being a terrible number, like just a really terrible number. And so it tells me that social media, like Tony's on social media, all of the wrestling people he's with are on social media, but all of the wrestling fans are not.
Right.
That's the problem is if you market, that's your marketing. It's like I think that when they first started, because they were so hot when they first started, and that was kind of the venue that they had, that, it was enough. But it's not enough now, and their characters, you know what I mean. Like in particular, like the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes, who were like really, really big on social media. Cody's gone, and most of the characters are not that big on social media now. Tony's really big on it and everything, but it's just not enough. That's what this week's lesson to me was from that rating from Tuesday Night Special was just like, and it was, and just as bad actually. Actually, the number was even worse in Canada than the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And in Canada, you weren't even going head up with NXT like in the United States. So it's like, it's just the people did not know. And, Canada's got a very loyal, regular fan base for AEW, as the United States. But the people did not know about it. And hammering it on social media alone was clearly not enough. And yeah, if they're going to go promote a whole bunch of matches on Monday, Tuesday on social media, or Wednesday it's just like, yeah, you'll get a segment of the crowd, but it's not a big enough segment to to make a ratings difference.
We're talking to Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer. Going back to that rating, for those that, and I don't know how anybody missed this because we normally don't talk about the ratings, but this was such a huge hit for AEW as far as taking a loss here. What was the number? It was 300 something, right? For
in the United States, it was 329,000 viewers and an 0.10 and 18 to 49. And yeah, I mean, by far, they've never done below, I think, 500. The number was absolutely stunning. You know, I expected a low number,
right,
but it was absolutely stunning how low it was and kind of scary in a lot of ways because you just go like, well, you know, I mean, like it's like they have a base audience. That's the thing is like you'd think they have this base audience that's going to watch Dynamite every week. Okay,
right.
You know, it's smaller than it was a year ago, but it's a base audience. And boy, this told me that it's like, you know, not a base audience. Like this number, I mean, was just like. But they did worse than Big Bang Theory lead-in, which has only happened. This is only the second time this has happened, is that they did worse than their lead-in, you know, ever since they've been on TBS. It's stunning. And you know, I mean, Big Bang Theory didn't do a great number either, but, you know, it wasn't even, you know, I mean, look, you know, I know there's a bunch of sports, but, you know, NXT won a bunch of sports too, and NXT did a great number in the United States.
And it's funny that you say that because I saw somebody razzing you on Twitter the other day because you'd brought up AEW numbers and then mentioned the competing against MLB. And there's a lot of interest in this year's MLB series for some reason. I don't know. It seems to be there's a lot more people talking about it this year around than others. But, you know, you just mentioned it now that NXT has the same problem. Plus, it's not WWE's A show. So really, the argument of the playoffs can't really hold up, can it?
To a degree. I mean, like,
but if both audiences have the same problem.
If you're talking about a 10% drop, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a 50% drop, no, not at all.
So that goes down again to the pre-promotion as well as the time change and a lot of other factors came into that. But by no means are we saying the sky is falling either here, but it was definitely poor timing considering the great news that AEW got with the TV renewal. And obviously people were riding high from that just to have the worst number in the show's history. I mean,
I mean, the sky isn't falling.
No.
But, and you know, they're going to be here for 3 years and do, you know, for sure really well. But, you know, after the 3 years, you know, it's so funny because when this happened, it was kind of like, I don't have to worry about them for 2 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like because in year 3 we'll start worrying again, right? I mean, and worrying is probably not even the right word, but you know, start being concerned. And it's like, well, you can't have too much of a fall because you got to be able to get up to a number. And you know, again, everything changes in January when they go into Max. If they can get a good audience on Max every week, you know, combined with their TV, because that's what happened with UFC with ESPN Plus is. You know, UFC's got these TV numbers that they get, but they also, you know, are on ESPN Plus, and the parent company, which is ESPN here and over there is WBD, they are aware of both of these numbers. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's, oh my God, the Dynamite rating's down. Maybe everyone went to Max. What's going to happen? And it's like, no, they're looking at the combined number. But, you know, I mean, if that combined number is a disappointment because they paid a lot of money, $180 million next year, $185 the year after. That's a lot of money. They're expecting, you know, some real success out of this thing. And if they don't get it, you know, it's going to be, you know, they don't get it. It's tough in the long run, you know, because nothing lasts forever if you're not popular.
What I like about this, though, is that at least for the next couple of years between WWE and AEW both re-upping their deals, we don't have to talk about it, which is nice. Like you said, you know, we don't have to really worry about things right now, unless either company were doing something.
You never have to worry about WWE for probably, you know, most likely. I don't want to say forever, but you know, they're so successful, and UFC, which is the same company, and they're successful. So, I mean, worrying about their future. I mean, you can, you know, look at like I don't like this and I don't like that, and of course, you know, like that. But as far as like they're going to be around. They're going to be around for a long, long time. And AEW will probably be around for a long, long time, but obviously it's not. WWE is far more certain.
My goodness. Dave, it's almost like we'll get to talk about just wrestling again for a while. Can you imagine? Yeah. What a time. What a time to be alive. Well, you know what? Let's shift over to that in just a moment here. You're listening to McGuire on Wrestling with Dave Meltzer. More with Dave coming up next.
Thanks for listening to McGuire on Wrestling. To be a part of the show, follow our social media or leave a tip. Head to McGuireShow.com. This is McGuire on Wrestling. If you like McGuire on Wrestling, you need to subscribe to the free McGuire on Wrestling podcast feed. Not only do you get access to the show a day early, but you also get free bonus content every week. Share a laugh with Mitch and Dimitri on the alternate commentary table.
Oh, I'm Cody Rhodes. Look at me.
Now, if this was Damian Priest, he'd apologize.
He probably would have apologized.
Follow along with the film career of one of wrestling's biggest stars with We've Seen a Movie.
Basically, I'm just watching John Cena play his wrestling character.
If John Cena was a raging alcoholic Atlantic City mooch before this.
Get all these shows, exclusive interviews, and more for free by subscribing to McGuire on Wrestling, wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
Hot off the heels of AEW's WrestleDream pay-per-view, which took place on Saturday night in Tacoma, Washington, we have talked to Dave Meltzer all about the Bryan Danielson finish and, of course, what looks like the end of his full-time in-ring career. Let's move over to WWE now. We're starting to see things bubble up here as far as the Bloodline storyline goes, as far as the Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens thing. It looks like they might be pairing off in a different direction now. It looks like the Bloodline thing is going maybe more Bloodline-centric here with Jimmy Uso now being back in the fold. As far as the build for this show coming up in Vancouver in a few weeks, what are your thoughts with that?
As far as survivors, I mean, I'm expecting Bloodline versus Bloodline, and I think we know four. I don't know if it'll be 4-on-4 or 5-on-5. I mean, we know Solo, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Tongaloa. So they may add a fifth person. Don't know. On the other side, obviously Roman and Jimmy, and so we got to get a couple other people. I mean, Jay was already teased.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think we're going to have a storyline for the next 2 months of Jimmy wanting Jay, Roman saying no, and finally something happens and Roman gives in and Jay wants in or whatever. So that's 3. So do we add Sami Zayn? I mean, that's the one that's kind of natural to me, or Cody Rhodes. Those are the things. But yeah, that's what I figure is I don't know. That's what I figure is on top for Vancouver. That's what it's looking like to me.
Business-wise for WWE, everything seems to still be full sales ahead here as far as it goes. Have you heard anything in regards to basically what the culture is overall? Because that was a lot of people were asking and talking about afterwards, after, of course, the McMahon special aired. And we've heard things are a lot better backstage. But, I mean, that really didn't seem to have a blip on anybody's radar as far as current day versus Vince's day.
In what sense?
We didn't hear anybody even being asked about the documentary, really, and nobody really brought it up, obviously, from WWE's side. But, I mean, overall, this thing has come. People are talking about it on the mainstream. But if you remember a few weeks ago, you and I were going, this might be the biggest cultural hit to WWE overall here, depending on what comes out. And it certainly did cover a lot of horrible things. But overall, again, the company just seems to be sailing on.
Wrestling fans, if they're entertained by wrestling, are going to watch wrestling. I mean, we've seen this through many, many, many scandals. So that's not a surprise yet. I mean, as far as that, it is interesting because when it comes to WWE, I haven't, I don't think publicly they've said a word. And even like people who I know, I mean, it's something that has been talked about, but it really not, it's not like a high in the thing. I think they kind of knew what it was going to be. Going in, and I think that like a lot of the audience, like I think that the whole thing that they're trying to build, and they've actually been trying to do this for months now, is just like Vince is gone. Vince is gone. Paul Levesque, and nobody's touched Paul Levesque. I mean, he's the face. I mean, even if it's Nick, nobody talks about Nick. You know what I mean? As far as like, he's not even a character on television.
Right.
You know what I mean? The face of this company is Paul Levesque and to a lesser degree, Shawn Michaels. And, as far as that documentary goes, they were both in it and neither of them were touched. So it didn't hurt them. And stuff of, like if you look at what WWF did 25 years ago in the Attitude Era, and it looks really bad today. The fact is 25 years ago, and we all know that history and we all know that it happened, but it's a totally different product now.
That's what the world was watching. Absolutely. Sticking with names from the past here, I wanted to ask you about this because we've seen a few announcements roll out lately. One of the most notable ones, obviously, being Jesse the Body Ventura. But now we've heard that Hornswoggle has signed one. DDP has signed. I thought DDP already had one, to be honest with you. But other wrestlers coming out, Victoria. All these names are now signing Nostalgia or Legends deals with WWE. We did see Rico Constantino, which that actually made me feel really great seeing him look as good as he looked at the AEW pay-per-view last night.
He had some real health problems.
Yeah, and the funny thing, he looks exactly the same now, which is so weird. But
yeah,
I'm wondering if there's a bit of a battle for nostalgia rights now between some of the old names, because AEW has made it clear that they're going to try and get some older names on there as well. But do you see now the next line of talent acquisition maybe being in Legends and Nostalgia?
No, I don't really think so. And depending on the deal, I mean, some of the WWE nostalgia guys. I mean, Van Dam, has one, and he's been on AEW TV, so it doesn't really preclude that in some cases. I know with Brett, I think it does. I mean, you might know better than me. I know from an AEW standpoint, I've asked a couple of times, about Brett, especially when they were really close, and they are with FTR. Of like, would it be great to have Brett in the corner of FTR against any team, right? And it was kind of like, to me, it's like, we don't think that Brett can do it because of his deal with Vince. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know that that's true or not. I just know that is what people in AEW have told me.
It's funny. I haven't asked him, so if it comes up in a conversation, maybe I will. But to me, I don't like bugging him with that sort of stuff, because if he's going to talk about it, he'll talk about it. But it does bring up an interesting point. You brought up the RVD thing, and he said that, he can work it where basically he can be on AEW TV, he can work wherever he wants. He just can't be on their video games. They can't make action figures of him, things like that.
Right? They can't merchandise him. Yeah.
So, I mean, he's good for a pop, I guess, but any real money is going to come from the WWE deal here. I just wondered because, again, we're seeing more and more of these roll out lately, and I'm just wondering if maybe people are re-upping or if there is value there, because, man, there sure is a lot of vintage acts getting new action figures and stuff through WWE, and others are being licensed out other places now.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is like for these people, you get them in the video game and they make some money, and look, at that stage of your life, most of these guys can use that money. So it's a positive. Of course you would want to sign with them. And it's I mean, it's good. The company look, they are making money off of you, but that's what every business does with entertainers.
Yep.
So it's just, I think it's good that it can happen. It's, again, like, the wrestling business today, I mean, there's good and bad from every era, but overall for the talent, and even the ex-talent, this is the best time ever, because 30 years ago, you wouldn't have guys that were stars 35 years earlier making money on merchandise. You know what I mean? It's good. And as far as the talent goes, it's like they're making more money than ever, and they don't have the insane schedule that the guys had in the past. And because of that, we're getting a better product. I mean, these guys are giving us great matches because they're not drugged up trying to get from town to town like a lot of the guys were in the past. And you know what I mean? They're not. It's really a much, much better business, even though, of course, I love a lot of the old stuff. And many people do. But for the talent, man, this is the time to be, is right now.
And speaking of somebody who came up through both ways here, and I saw you reported there's a plan for an eventual retirement angle, but word is the injury that AJ Styles suffered last week on SmackDown is legit. Do you have any update on us for that?
It's a mid-foot ligament sprain, so it doesn't sound like horrible. So, but as far as like how long out, I haven't heard a timetable. But that was the idea was, and again, it's like, a WWE angle leading to a retirement is very often just an angle. And most of the time is. So I think, but that was his storyline, was that it was going to be like he's riding out as a baby face, and we'll see. He can still go. So, he's put his body through a lot. I don't know what, where his headspace is as far as, does he feel it's time to get out? Is he going to end up being, working with WWE in another role after this, which I kind of expect. But we'll have to see how it plays out. But it didn't sound like this is something that's going to keep him out for a long, long time. It's probably like the Seth Rollins. Again, I shouldn't even speculate on the time, but it doesn't feel like it's like a 6-month or a 9-month thing.
Well, either way, we'll look forward to seeing what happens for AJ. I mean, having a guy like that as an agent or as a mentor, maybe he's down in NXT, who knows what happens, but I mean, that would be just nothing but a huge value to have for those wrestlers.
Especially now, and I'll tell you why, because AJ, because of how he always wrestled, probably understands the good and the bad of a lot of the mistakes that a lot of the new guys make and can formulate. Because a lot of times, if you go back like to guys from like 35 years ago, the in-ring has changed so much.
Yeah.
That like they're telling guys to do stuff, and then the guys in their head is just like, wait a minute, this is not how we even wrestle now. Whereas AJ is completely in tune with how they wrestle now.
And that's just it. He's a guy who can probably offer some great tips on how to not get hurt at the same time. It's kind of coincidental that it happened now, but you know what I mean?
His injury was a fluke. So yeah. Before
we go, of course, we have to find out what's the latest things people can read about in the Wrestling Observer.
Well, there's a really big issue. We really went into depth on the Bad Blood pay-per-view. There was finish that was botched that we go into, the controversy of the Drew McIntyre headshot, where things are going for Crown Jewel, different things. And then, a big story, as far as AEW. Just a lot of suggestions I made for AEW to hopefully help business, talk about where they're at, talk about what the TV deal does and doesn't mean, the ratings from the last week and kind of like what this tells you. So those were like the biggest things in the Observer, but lots of international news as always, cards coming up, and really a very, very interesting week. Very interesting week when it came to wrestling.
Last thing before I let you go here, we're about to do our Yay Boo, our fan feedback segment on the pay-per-view last night. Other than the main event, obviously, what is one part of WrestleDream that stood out to you as the must-see part of that show last night?
The three-way match. I think the three-way was the best three-way match in the history of wrestling. And last night after the show, I went to a cage match and looked up, the greatest three-way matches that have been, in their thing, which the funny one is number one is the one, if you would ask me, like, Dave, what's the best three-way you've ever seen? And I would immediately say AJ Styles, Christopher Danielson, Samoa Joe from the TNA pay-per-view many, many years ago. And I think this match was taken from that match. I mean, it's like, I don't know if you know this, but one of I don't want to say his favorite match, but one of his favorite matches of all time was that match.
Oh, wow.
And they used that match, Takeshita was Samoa Joe and Will and Ricochet were Daniels and AJ. And they used that match as kind of like a, format or something, whatever you would call it. And, I was actually told by not one of the participants, but someone who was there, and just like, the goal is to beat that match, which I thought that they did. And then afterwards, I did hear from one of them and just said, flat out, it's like, we were trying to do this match. And it's like, yeah, you really did. I mean, again, I think it was the best three-way match in history of wrestling. And so that's the must-see. But it was I thought, as a show, I thought it was a great wrestling show. I think that there's, a few things that people, as far as some finishes that people were surprised and like, the Danielson thing, for people who want happy endings, we sure didn't get it. You know what I mean? But that was by design.
Well, I hope they got a big recoup plan for this one because, again, I mean, we could say the same thing about Sami Zayn in Montreal, Drew McIntyre in Scotland. We've talked about that before, but this was a big one for many, many reasons. But Dave Meltzer, always great to talk to you, sir. You know what? Enjoy your day here, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay. Have a great weekend.
Coming up, we go through the entire AEW WrestleDream card with your thoughts and feedback with another edition of Yay Boo.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
CKXU-FM 88.3 in Lethbridge is Southern Alberta's true alternative radio station.
The cream of the crop! Nobody does it better.
Proudly carrying McGuire on Wrestling every week.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something different to listen to,
This is going to be a slobber knocker!
check out our NCRA award-winning lineup of programs or stream us anytime at ckxu.com.
Yay boo, it's lots of fun to do. If you like it, holla yay. If you don't, you holla boo.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
Well, every pay-per-view or premium live event that the North American companies like to put out, we try and cover the big ones with another rousing edition of Yay Boo. And of course, after AEW's WrestleDream, which we just talked to Dave Meltzer about, and the big finish of Bryan Danielson's regular in-ring career, we now turn to your feedback on the show based on the puzzling yet simple feedback of Yay Boo. Here to join me as he does every time we do this, the one and only Joe Aguinaldo. Joe, how are you, sir?
Yay!
You sat through the entire AEW pay-per-view last night.
It wasn't easy, but yes, I did.
I was waiting for a boo, but that's okay. Actually, how is your overall thoughts on this, Joe? The overall show?
You know what? This is strictly going to be on time. A major boo for me. Like, now that Tony Khan and AEW are doing pretty much monthly pay-per-views, like, I don't want to sit through a pay-per-view till close to 12 o'clock. I don't have the time. I don't have the effort. Right. So,
well, move to Alberta then instead of 10 o'clock.
But yes, I'm giving this, like, again, nothing bad in ring, but for the most part, I'm giving it a boo because by the time we got to Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley, I was like, I wanted to tap out. Like, I was like, all right, I'm done with this pay-per-view.
It's the old more is more. And
Yep.
The feedback I did see, and we'll talk about it a little bit as we get into the fan feedback here with Yay Boo, but the feedback I saw is that the crowd seemed rather quiet for this one.
Yeah, they were not one of the hotter crowds that I've seen at an AEW pay-per-view.
You have to wonder if they were just saving it up for the main event, wondering what was going to happen, right?
Maybe,
but you know what? It doesn't matter now because all that matters is your opinions, which you can share every pay-per-view in PLE on the Team MOW McGuire on Wrestling Facebook page. We're going to go there now with Joe Aguinaldo taking us match by match, and the majority be either giving a yay or boo, and we'll get to some choice feedback. But Joe, go ahead and take us to our first match of the night.
Okay, and let me preface this by saying I am not doing any of the pre-show stuff because we'd be here forever if we did. So, first
already going to be here forever.
First match of the main show, Jay White got the win over Adam Hangman Page. Resounding result for this was yay across the board.
Which actually surprised me a bit. I thought more people were going to be ticked that Hangman didn't win here, but there was some interesting feedback here from some people who said that, it's kind of weird having the guy who main evented the last show opening the curtain for this one. That's from Blaine Vandergreen. And Blaine, I get what you're saying there, but at the same time, that's not the first match of the show. They've already had all the pre-show and the pre-pre-show and the pre-warm-up show and the countdown to the warm-up pre-show. So really, by the time you get to that, what was it literally? Like, it would be the fourth or fifth match of the night, wouldn't it?
Something like that, yeah. Like, they had already, I think there were 4 matches on the pre-show.
So you're starting the show off, the show, with a big star, and Jay White being a star that is maybe not as big as he could have been, but still definitely revered and admired by the fans, and getting a win, I think is the right direction for him too. So solid feedback there. Randy says it was an awesome match as well, but let's go on to the next one here because we have like 600 matches to talk about.
All right. Well, next match, Mariah May retained the AEW women's title against Willow Nightingale. Based on the results, it looks like this was a 50-50 split between yays and boos.
The glamour. Boy, are people getting behind the glamour? At least some people are. Before we continue with this, did you get a chance to see the post-show media scrum at all?
I did not.
It was super weird. I highly recommend, and don't get me wrong, I know these are all like giant time sucks anyways, but even watch like the first 10 minutes of it. First of all, it wasn't hosted by Tony Khan. It was hosted by Tony Schiavone.
Oh.
And they said that Tony Khan couldn't be there because of what happened in the main event and what happened afterwards. They made it sound like I heard somebody else compare this too. Like they were doing, Vince McMahon following Undertaker to the hospital after that WrestleMania performance, right? Like I said, Tony's not available right now. So there's Tony Khan looking all sad, or Tony Schiavone looking all sad, I should say. And then one of the first people that comes out, he was like, oh, this sad situation for Bryan Danielson. And then it's Mariah May being Mariah May. So,
oh, God. That's horrible.
Anyway, there's, like you said, split feedback here. Dave says, boo. He really wanted Willow to pull through on that one. And then Devin says that they're going to make her irrelevant with the fans with all these losses. You think that Willow suffered that much? Whew. I don't know. And then one more here from Craig. Says, love the build of Mariah and Willow. It's better each time she's on. I'm assuming he means Mariah. All right. Well, there you go.
I'm gonna guess that.
Blaine also says that he thinks that AEW is a pro wrestling company and sports entertainment. Mariah May proves that. Well, yeah, but I think Tony Storm proved it before Mariah May did.
Yes, and much better, too, by the way.
Yeah. Have you seen some of the stuff she's been doing in Japan lately?
Oh, yeah.
even her hurricane update from Florida. It's like, I mean, I'm glad she's okay, and I know there's people suffering here, but dear Lord, that woman can just do anything right now and get away with it. It's so funny. All right, next match, Joe.
All right, next up, we had Katsuyori Shibata challenging Jack Perry for the TNT title. However, Jack Perry retains. Okay, so based on the voting here, it looks like 50-50. But there was one vote that I think was a boo, but they didn't actually write it. So I'm going to say that one abstained.
Is that Devin's?
That's Devin's.
Yeah, Devin says one of Shibata's better matches. I just don't care about Jack Perry. Maybe I'm on an island. I don't think you're on an island, dude. We've talked about this before. And I don't know Jack Perry. And if I meet him, maybe he's a really nice guy. I don't know. But bottom line is Jack Perry has the most go-away heat I've seen in a long time. I don't get it. People aren't on board with the heel. People don't care about the scapegoat. And this is what happens when you drive to an arena in an airport shuttle bus. It's not cool. You got to have that. Even if you're a jerk, if you're a cool jerk, people like hating you. You know what I mean? If you're showing up in a shuttle bus, I don't care. Just don't care. One more here from Craig says, yeah, I've been saying Jack Perry is the greatest thing in wrestling, and now he keeps proving that. So clearly Craig and I have very different opinions on Jack Perry. All right, let's get to the next match here, pal.
All right, next up was the triple threat match between Ospreay, Ricochet, and Takeshita for the international title, and we have an and new. Takeshita wins the belt.
All right, I want the fan feedback here, but before I say that, or before you say that, Dave Meltzer on this very show just moments ago said that this is what he feels was the greatest three-way match in the history of pro wrestling. And that's Dave Meltzer talking, not me.
Oh.
Joe, do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I think Styles, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels might have something to say about that.
Well, and that's the one that was his top pick before that. And he said that this match actually borrowed from that match. So let's get to the fan feedback. Where's it split?
Actually, you know what? Everyone who commented on this match gave it a yay.
Uh-huh. Joe, you don't seem sold.
I thought it was great. I just don't know if I can call it the greatest three triple threat match of all time.
Well, for Dave to say that, I think, first of all, that's a pretty hefty statement.
Yes.
I don't agree or disagree because, again, I'm watching the show after we do this. I'm sorry. I had to work. I had a hockey game last night I had to do. But I did watch the main event, which we will talk about in a bit here. But overall, big time yay from Dave. Says it was a star-making performance by Takeshita tonight. Craig says, yay, these are the faces of AEW, and Takeshita is a main event star. Maybe, although go and watch that press conference afterwards. I might argue that as well. I mean, having Callis there helping him talk, sure, but Callis everything was off last night with that presser, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's most of what I saw.
Right.
Is what I'm basing this on. Anyway, last one here. We'll go to Blaine again because he says, it was the kind of match I expected out of these three. Some spots were obviously choreographed while others were strategically set up that way, so that moved could be counter. Okay, so he liked the way the match was laid out here. Kind of surprised by the result. I saw the Fletcher turn coming from a mile away. Yeah, Mitch and Dimitri from the alternate commentary table. What do they call him? Simple Jack?
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Because he looks like Simple Jack, the character. And now that I've seen that and I've seen Kyle Fletcher, I can't unsee it.
Because I remember they called him that like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I just died when I saw it. I was like, oh,
stuck. Simple Fletch. Okay. Next match, Joe.
Next match was Hologram beating Beast Mortis in a 2 out of 3 falls match. You know what? Again, everyone who commented on this gave this a yay.
I like that it was 2 out of 3 because that is what lucha wrestling is usually. I'm 50-50 on Hologram personally. I love the Beast Mortis. I think there's something special. You know what he is? He's the Guar of pro wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know if he's the greatest wrestler ever. Much like Guar was never the greatest band ever.
Yeah.
But what a spectacle. And then the potential for like Halloween costumes of this guy and the action figures will be incredible. And just when you see the guy coming to the ring, you're like, what is that? I dig that a lot. Anyway, so a big fan of Beast Mortis. I don't know how I feel about a Hologram beating him, but I mean, again, it's one of those things where different strokes for different folks. Dave said yay. Next match, Joe.
Next up, we have Darby Allin finally getting a win. I think it was finally getting a win over Brody King. However, based on the feedback, most people gave this one a boo.
I don't know, because both guys have that similar car crash style, right?
Right.
I noticed that Brody wasn't wearing his creepy face paint this time, though.
No,
he wasn't. Photos. Bottom line here, feedback, like you said, overwhelmingly negative on this one. So I think we'll just skip to the next one, to be honest with you.
All right. So the next match was the Young Bucks retaining the AEW tag titles over Private Party. Looking at the feedback, for the most part, it was a boo.
I think that a lot of people have the feelings towards the Young Bucks as you do during CM Punk matches. I think people are just tired of them. But let me just.
But the Young Bucks are greater than CM Punk. I just got to put that out there.
Wow. All right, if you say so. Dave says, I really wanted Private Party to win here. This is the match I was most looking forward to tonight. Wow. He said Private Party might have unseated the Bucks. Maybe this gets them over more with a loss, but I really wanted a title change here. Craig says, I like both teams, but the story to the match was flat. Blaine, while he says yay, says that I enjoy them the same way I enjoy a Cirque du Soleil performance. He's talking about the flippy matches. So there you go. Okay, what do we got next here, Joe? Dear Lord, these cards are long.
Actually, before we go on, I will admit I did like that match a lot. But I wanted Private Party to win as well. But it was a good match. So
I had honestly forgotten Private Party was a thing until recently. Like, that's one guy's opinion.
That's fair.
Next match.
Okay, next match. Mark Briscoe retained the Ring of Honor title over Chris Jericho.
Thank God. Sorry.
Yes,
Continue.
thank God for that. But based on the feedback, most of it was a yay.
All right. Well, we go to that, and I know that, first of all, Mitch Hansius over the ACT will be happy to see that. Yays across the board here, except for Blaine. Blaine says this match just kind of felt like a transition between other matches on the show, and I'm just over the whole learning tree thing. It's not working. You're supposed to feel that way about the learning tree, Blaine. I think it is working. Just saying. A lot of people saying, thank God Jericho didn't win, which is funny.
For sure.
And I don't know. I'm still 50-50 on Jericho. You know, I was over it, and I get being over it. And if you're a fan of Jericho, but you're not a fan anymore, you're over it. I get that too. I don't mind him being in this place, especially not winning the match. I think the Ocho is the perfect place for him to stay with that. All right. Next match, please, Joe.
Finally, we get to the main events of Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley, where Jon Moxley becomes the new AEW World Champion. And looking at the feedback, it is a resounding yay on this. Even the one person that said boo still picked the yay. So, like...
Yeah, Dave, walking the fence here. Outcome, boo. Match, yay. Post-match, goodness gracious. Yeah, you know what? We've abstained from giving most of our feedback in this show here, Joe, but I want to know your thoughts on the match, the finish, and the after effects.
Match was awesome. I didn't like the finish. No. Before anyone says anything, I just personally didn't like the finish because I'm a Bryan Danielson fan. So, take that for what it is. But very intrigued by where we're going. The one thing I did notice was they kept really harping on this is the end of Bryan Danielson's regular career. So part of me is like, is he coming back part-time? But very curious to see what happens with like Wheeler Yuta, because that whole thing was like, whoa. And my only concern about this, and again, this is just my own sensibility. It was the stupid babyface thing where it's like two guys come out and then some security comes out. It's like, why did you all just go out to the ring? Like, come on. Again, it's pro wrestling. I get it.
The whole final part of his regular career and everything, there is some suspicion that whether he was telling the truth about needing the upcoming neck surgery,
right,
which may be a thing. And then I can't remember if it was Semper Vivi or Dave that I talked to. Somebody was talking about how, he might be headed to Tokyo Dome.
Oh, okay.
So, if that happens in January, that might be the thing. But I would think a neck surgery would take longer to recover from than January. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If he wants, because you're talking Wrestle Kingdom here, right? So
yeah.
If he were to even if he were to have the surgery like today, a neck surgery, that's going to take some time, man.
Well, it depends on the severity of the surgery too, I guess. I don't know. We're not doctors.
Fair.
But yeah, so overall match you felt was great. Finish.
Again, I didn't like the finish, but again, that's because I'm a Bryan Danielson guy. But in terms of where we're going, very intrigued. I'll call it a
submission was though. How quick the submission was though. What do you think about that?
You know what? I wonder about that. Like, and again, I don't know if anyone else caught it, but when Bryce Rensburg was the ref, and when he rang for the bell, it almost looked like he felt like he did the thing where he put his hands on his head like he screwed up, and I'm like, oh, like did something happen there? But ultimately, you know what? Like, if you were gonna beat Bryan Danielson, I personally would, even if there was underhandedness, I would have liked to have seen Mox get a pin.
When Bryce wasn't looking into the camera the whole time?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, just that.
God.
I think that's what kind of ruined it for me. Not ruined it, but that kind of spoiled it for me as well, because it looked like Bryce made a mistake or did something wrong, and that took me out of the match. It took me out of that moment.
I don't know what's up with that guy. And again, maybe the nicest guy in the world. I don't know. I don't do his job, and I respect him for having the role he has. But there was a point where Danielson had Moxley, and I can't remember if it was an FCF or a crossface or something like that. Anyway, and Moxley's reaching for the rope the whole time, and Bryce is looking dead in the camera the whole time. And I thought, well, maybe he's looking at the hand and the rope, but I was like, no, he's looking into the camera and the rope. So I just don't know. I just don't know. That's what actually bothered me about it. Now, before we get to the fan feedback again, the big question here is the aftermath. Joe, your thoughts?
Again, the beatdown, it was like, you know what? It was intense. And I'm intrigued to see where this goes. But during that beatdown, like I'll admit, maybe I lost myself in it, but it got uncomfortable for a bit. When they put like the bag on him, the whole Wheeler Yuta thing, the fact that none of the baby faces could make it into the ring. Like, yeah, at one point it was uncomfortable in a good sort of wrestling heat way. But definitely intrigued to see where this goes next week.
Now, last time they did the bag thing, you said you didn't mind it because it took you a throwback to Terry Funk days.
So, see, here's the thing. I minded it because they just did it. Like, you know what I mean?
That's my next question.
That was the part of it. Like, if they had done this like now instead of like 2 weeks ago, I would have thought, great, Terry Funk throwback. But when they brought the bag out again, I was like, come on. Like, did you run out of booking ideas? Like, you know what I mean?
That's why they couldn't have this match in Canada. Because they would just bring out one of those reusable fabric bags and just nothing would happen.
Oh, I can't believe we're laughing about putting a bag over someone's head.
We went there. Actually breathing quite fine through this. I think it's actually filtering out some of the particulates. Let's get to some of your feedback. Richard Brown says, yay, great storytelling and left me wanting to know more. Blaine Vandergreen says, weird to see a Moxley match without blood, but Danielson continues his streak of best matches on the card. I expected the unit. We'll get there in a second, but I expected it to cost Bryan the match. Doing it in the post match, I don't think was effective. There's another angle that could have been saved for TV. I'm going to go ahead and say it now. And I think it was the ACT guys that brought this up before. I can't take Wheeler Yuta seriously as a heel. I can't remember who they said he looks like. But it was another one of those comparisons where I was like, I can't unsee it now. And even though I don't remember who it is, it's like, you just see it, you're like, oh no. And it's just it. He just seems like too nice of a guy.
But here's the thing, the one thing I will say about his, and I'm going to use quotes here, turn yesterday was,
right,
like there was at least some what appeared to be remorse, and maybe that's where we're going with this, is where he's like the reluctant heel. I don't know, but I thought yesterday it did work. Now that said, I totally understand what you guys are saying, because yeah, Wheeler was not a believable heel. Like even his voice is very babyface, for lack of a better description. Like when he talks and stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the overall card here. We'll get to a couple more comments here. This is from Devin, who says, biggest of yays. The match was awesome, and the post-match angle was tremendous. Crowd was dead silent, uncomfortable, the way it should be. Yeah, remember that great WrestleMania finish that everybody loved when everybody went, huh? That's the funniest thing I've read about that. And I've read a lot of tweets. I've heard a few podcasters already talking about it. I was like, oh my God, that's the fun. Because everybody's like, this is like when Brock beat The Undertaker. That's the way it should be. Everybody just gobsmacked and leaving sad. All right. A few more comments here on the show overall. Devin thought the show was incredible wrestling-wise. No surprise, AEW is a great pay-per-view company. They need to tighten up some of the booking as far as the angles making sense on title shots. And I think we'll really be... Well, they got to do something because the TV is a mess. I'll agree, the pay-per-views are usually decent shows, but the TV is a mess. An absolute mess. And Meltzer said that today, too. Like, we're going into Dynamite, and there's no allusion to anything coming up. They might rely on some stuff on social media this week, but you think we would have heard something on the pay-per-view about what was coming up this week. You know what I mean?
Right.
All right. One more from Craig Usher, and I'm going to save this one for last because it's the best one. He says, honorary yay. And this is what I actually popped for the most, is that we were getting ready to start the hockey game that I was working last night. Rico Constantino coming back for the M&M collection. Massive yay.
He looked
always
good,
loved that guy. I don't know if you've read any of his stories or any of the articles about him through his life, but I mean,
I know a little bit. He's gone through some hard times.
So Rico was a contestant on American Gladiators like decades ago.
Yep.
And then he was a police officer.
Yep.
And then he, of course, had his fame in wrestling much, much later than most people get. It's kind of like a DDP story, only without the world championships and stuff. But, you know, got signed on later in life. Had some fun there doing the stuff with Chuck and Billy and being the fashion consultant. Then, yeah, has a litany of illnesses that basically start attacking his body. And, dude, tell me Rico didn't look exactly the same last night as he did 20 years ago.
Again, I thought he looked pretty damn good. And what is he, like 60,
63, I think I saw, or 61 or something? Yeah.
I was like, I hope I look like that when I'm 63. Minus the hair. That I'm not sure if I could pull that off. But
I wish I looked like that now. So on that note, Joe, thank you for your help with Yay Boo. And we're going to leave with some of the greatest theme music in the history of pro wrestling.
You look so good to me.
Tell me you're not loving this. Joe, thank you for joining me, my friend.
Thank you.
Happy Canadian Thanksgiving wherever you are. Find a reason to eat some stuffing or dressing, and we'll talk again soon. Until then, thanks for listening and letting me do what I do. Play safe, drive safe. That's turkey for Abyssinia.
McGuire on Wrestling. Online and on the radio. Listen to the show Mondays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time at CKXU.com, wherever you get your podcasts, and at McGuireShow.com.
Oh, baby, you look so